Hello, I'm Brandon Sheffield. I'm the creative director of Necrosoft Games. I'm here to talk to you about our new style tactics game, DemonSchool. DemonSchool is a friendship-focused, horror-tinged tactics RPG with a relationship system and a unique tactics system that isn't seen really in any other game, where movement equals action. And overall, just a curious vibe where we have 2D sprites mixed with 3D backgrounds to represent 3D demons coming into the 2D human world. Just gives you a spooky but friendly vibe, which is hard to describe, but which you'll get right away when you play it. Your tactics all take place in one turn. You've got an action phase and a planning phase. So you plan everything in the planning phase, and then it all executes at once. So it's much easier to see the long term of your tactics and how it all comes together. So I was actually a little worried that it might be too hardcore for some people, but we actually found that it made sense to people for whom tactics games were sometimes inaccessible. So we're definitely happy about that. The main character is Faye. She's the last demon hunter in the human world. Nobody believes that demons exist. Nobody is practicing demon hunting anymore. But her grandfather taught her basically book learning demon hunting. So she's never seen one either, but demons are finally coming back into the human world. So she's the only one that's actually prepared. And she goes to this island where there are two things. There's a school and a prison. And if you fail in school, you go to the prison. And she is there because she believes that this is where demons are going to break through because of this dormant volcano that is connecting to the demon world. And she's right. And the school actually knows about it and has gathered a bunch of the kind of remnants of the demon hunting guilds from the past who don't know that their ancestors were demon hunters, but they've all been gathered in this place to try to combat the coming demon invasion. This is a boss battle featuring a giant skeleton that was inspired by an old Japanese painting, and he's trying to stab his fingers down and which will insta-kill our heroes, and they have to smack the fingers, which will then open up his brain, of course, and his eyeball flops out, his third eye, and then you hit that to damage him. And each of our bosses have their own kind of little gimmick that they'll do, and they're all full 3D, representing that they're much stronger and more able to manifest themselves in this space between the human and demon worlds that they're able to get into. And our bosses all require a different sort of tactics, but again, you can always, as long as you're in the planning phase, fast forward or rewind your actions to make sure you get it just right. So though they may be difficult, each one has their own little puzzle you've got to figure out. You can definitely eventually get it as you kind of maneuver around the space. So here we've got an example of some of our cutscenes and how they work and how those lead into battle. And you can see the human world kind of stripping away, and then we're in this space that's between the human and demon worlds. So the kind of the demonic has bled into the human, and that's why we've got like recognizable floating buildings around and things like that, even though things have gone a bit dark. And you can see our tactics here a little bit. You've got your planning phase and then the action phase. We're in the action phase now. And then the demons take their turn. They paint some danger tiles so you know where to avoid. You might get hit there, so you've got to move out of the way. So here we are in our planning phase, trying to figure out how to deal with this threat, and you can see that we're two of our knockback characters are pushing the enemy away. Then this other passes through and debuffs them so that their defense is lower. And then after that, we'll have one more knockback character slam that enemy into a friend, which creates a combo. You could see earlier it was 1 point of damage, and now they did 2 because of the debuff. And we can watch that combo in action right now. How that works. So in our battle sequence here, we have 4 of our core characters that you kind of start out with. You've got Faye, who's the main character with the red hair. She is a knockback type character, so she knocks enemies back 1 space. And her special attack, it's an almighty elemental damage. Each special does elemental damage, and enemies have weaknesses or strengths against those. But almighty is strong against all enemies except for bosses. And if she kills an enemy with it, it costs 0 action points, which is very handy if, say, you're on your 3rd action with her and you activate the special and kill an enemy with it, then it costs 0 action points instead of 3. We also have a healer character called Newt. He's the one with the yellow sash. He heals your friendly characters while also healing himself. But if he heals a friendly character that has taken no damage and has no elemental ailments or poison or things like that, then he will give them a +1 damage buff, which is very handy. And if you use his special, then he'll heal 3 tiles in a row and potentially buff 3 tiles in a row, and that is super useful for getting your team much stronger. So you initially each character hits for 1 damage from the start. So when you add 1, that's quite powerful when your numbers are that low. But then our next character, Namiko, she's the one wearing the blue dress. She passes through enemies and debuffs them. So she'll pass through as many enemies as there are in a line, debuff all of them, and also stun them. And with the debuffing, it means their defense goes down by half. So if you buff with Newt so that you get 1 more attack point, and then you debuff with Namiko, debuff the enemy, then instead of doing 1 damage, you're now doing 4 damage to an enemy. And that's one of the core kind of pillars of figuring the tactics out in this game. Namiko's special attack is a kind of water elemental attack that attacks in a 9-tile square around her. And the final character that we're showing here is Destin. He's kind of a himbo. He's not super smart, but he's very earnest. He's also a knockback character like Faye, so you kind of put him in front, let him take damage and deal damage. So as you defeat your enemies, the human world layers back on, and you've closed the portal to the demon world, and now you're back in your cutscene talking about the recent events. These guys are somewhat embroiled in the conspiracy to raise demons and bring them forth into the human world. We're not 100% sure how they're involved yet, but we know that they're involved in being cagey about it. you can see the transition to night. Every major story piece that you go through advances time. So there's 5 days in a week and 3 time periods. And now we're just walking around town talking to NPCs, which you can do at your leisure. And this is also where you can find side quests and do mini games and things like that. That's actually a side quest that just started. And those have these kind of smaller avatars. They don't have the ones that take up the full screen, so they're kind of quicker and snappier. And they're entirely optional side quests, so you can do as many of them as you like, or as few of them as you like. But you'll want to do all the side quests that you're interested in before your next piece of main story, because that moves time forward, and those side quests may disappear after that. So that has been Demon School. We hope you enjoyed it. Thanks to London Games Festival for giving us the space to talk about it. If you're interested, you can wishlist the game on Steam, Demon School, one word. And if you'd like to hear more from us as we share kind of development tips and tricks and little pieces of the game, work in progress, you can follow us on Twitter at Necrosoft Games or TikTok at Necrosoft Games. Also on YouTube, you can search for us as Necrosoft Games, and we're just sharing behind the scenes about how we did all the 2D, 3D stuff and how our battle systems work and all kinds of little things like that. So give us a look, and we'll talk to you again soon.